Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is Troy, your host. We are live and recording.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is Tuesday, November 8th, 2022. Welcome to our land use and public hearing. I'll call the meeting to order. If you'll all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Attorney Pratt, do we have certification of the agenda today?
Good evening, Commissioners. There are two items on your agenda this evening. The Double D exemption, project file EX 2022-006. This required no specialized notice, but was noticed 24 hours prior to this hearing. And then the 7745 Moore Road First Amendment use by special review, project file US 2022-004. This item had mailed notice accomplished September 30th, signed posted notice also accomplished September 30th, and published notice accomplished September 29th. All of these items have been properly noticed, and you have jurisdiction to hear them today.
Thank you, Attorney Pratt. Do any commissioners have disclosures for items on this agenda today?
I have none.
No, sir.
And I have none either. With that, we'll move to item 2A in our land use meeting agenda items. We have Double D exemption, project file EX 2022-006. Eric Pavlinek presenting for staff. Hi, Eric.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Eric Pavlinek, representing Planning Services. Before you is the Double D exemption. The project number is EX 2022-006. Robert Dismore is here on behalf, or as the applicant and owner of the project. Proposed is an exemption to establish 5 residential parcels totaling approximately 18.34 acres. The exemption will legalize 2 parcels, proposed parcels 1 and 5, as well as adjust the boundaries between 3 parcels, proposed parcels 1, 2, and 3. The intent of Article 9 of the subdivision resolution is to establish criteria in a review process whereby the Board of County Commissioners may grant exemptions from the definition of the term subdivision and subdivided land. The exemption process includes submittal of an application followed by a referral agency review period. Following resolution of outstanding issues, a public meeting is scheduled before the Board of County Commissioners. Through the exemption process, the applicants have verified that water, sewer, access, and other basic services will be available to serve all 5 parcels. The site indicated by the red star is generally in the southwest portion of the county near the Perry Park subdivision. The site outlined in red is north of Echo Valley Road. The properties are zoned suburban residential and agriculture 1. This is an aerial view of the property. The 5 parcels were part of the former Perry Park Country Club site, which include a clubhouse, tennis courts, and a pool facility. Parcels 2, 3, and 4 were legally established per deeds, dated in 1981, 1987, and 1988, respectively. Parcels 1 and 5 were established after 1994 and are not considered legal parcels. The current owners were unaware of the subdivision violation when they purchased parcels 1 and 5 in 2021 and 2022. The exemption exhibit shows the proposed boundaries of the 5 parcels. Access to these parcels is provided by an existing 20-foot wide access easement that connects to Echo Hills Drive, which is on the east side. The parcels will be served by the Perry Park Water and Sanitation District. Following are some site photos. This is a view from Echo Hills Club Road looking north at the entrance where there's a gate, and this is the access that provides the provides access to the 5 parcels. This is a view from within the property looking south. This is near the Perry Park Water and Sand water tank site, which is just north. A view from the western property boundary looking west. And finally, a view from the same location looking north. In accordance with Section 903 of the subdivision resolution, the request must comply with one of the 5 listed criteria to be exempted from the definition of the term subdivision. Specifically, Section 903.05 authorizes subdivision exemption for other divisions of land affected by a deed recorded in the office of the Douglas County Clerk and Recorder that the board determines is not within the purpose of this resolution. This has been broadly interpreted to include both existing and proposed divisions of land accomplished by the recordation of deeds. Staff has evaluated the application in accordance with Article 9. Should the board the board has broad authority to approve subdivision exemptions which meet one or more of the stated eligible criteria. In this case, the deeds for the 2 parcels were executed and recorded in 1998, 4 years later than the county's adopted cutoff date for subdivision. The owners were not aware that the parcels were legally established. Access, central water and sewer, and other services are available to the site. Should the board find that should the board approve the request, the following 2 conditions should be considered for inclusion in the motion. Condition number 1, prior to recordation of the exemption exhibit, technical corrections to the exhibit shall be made to the satisfaction of Douglas County. And condition number 2, all commitments and promises made by the applicant or the applicant's representative during the public meeting and or agreed to in writing and included in public record have been relied upon by the Board of County Commissioners in approving the application. Therefore, such approval is conditioned upon the applicant's full satisfaction of all such commitments and promises. This concludes my presentation. The applicant has a presentation on the request.
Thank you, Eric. Any questions for staff?
I have none. Thank you.
No questions.
And I have none either. With that, let's go ahead and bring the applicant forward. If you want to just state your name and where you're from for the record, please.
Robert Dinsmore. Can you hear me? Okay, I can probably stand. You can hear me now? Yeah. What else? What else do you need?
We don't need anything unless you have a presentation for us.
Yeah, I just got a couple of things
Okay,
just
sure,
to give you some
please.
background on the property itself.
If you want to just state your name and where you're from, and then you can go into your
Sure, Robert
presentation.
Dinsmore, 7524 Engineers Court in Larkspur, Colorado, 80118.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Dinsmore.
So if this is ready to go, the Double D is representative of 2 families, myself, Dinsmore, and then Steve and Lori Dumler, Robert and Jessica Dinsmore. Lori is somebody, I moved here in 72, grew up here a mile out of town towards Franktown. Lori and I met in high school. We've stayed in touch all these years, and I had been working on a Maribel development, acquired about 115 properties over the years, last 25 years. And then this property came available, and I was working closely with some folks out there, the ranchers, and was able to sell that and quickly turn and move into this property. The reason why we didn't recognize that number 1 and 5 were not legal was because the property was an 18-acre parcel at the time. You see this on the assessor's website, 18.335 acres. We rolled over and purchased this property knowing that it was originally 5 separate parcels, and so we quickly moved to break that back apart. But just for a context on history, in 71 and 72, this property was constructed and opened as the Perry Park Social Clubhouse, tennis courts and swimming pool. You can see up at the top left the construction that started, and then in June of 23rd of 72 was the grand opening. It was a big deal for dignitaries and everyone from around the state. You can see on the bottom left, there's the overhead view of the actual clubhouse, the swimming pool, the tennis courts, and then on the right, bottom right, is the actual clubhouse as it's set up in the property, which is where I personally will build our home in that space that's not there now. Fast forward 37 years, Perry Park decided to focus on their clubhouse down below by the golf course. This was a social one. There were 2 separate memberships to be involved. They stepped away from this property and they moved down to their lower property, and as a result, this started to have quite a bit of vandalism, and it just started to deteriorate. Somebody long ago decided that they were going to strip it clean, which they did. You'll see the top there where the clubhouse and the swimming pool and everything was. Down below, you'll see it was wiped clean. It's basically a blank canvas, which has been reseeded. It's been filled in. So right now, it's just ready to do something with. So I go back to what we chose to do once we purchased the 18 acres, which was to do a retracement survey. When we did the retracement survey, there was 5 already in the books at that point in time. It was just that it was a former owner said, hey, I want one account, probably for tax purposes. The 5 parcels still existed from 91. I can see it on recorded deeds. Historically, every time it was sold, even though it said 18, it was still 5 separate parcels. So we did the retracement survey in September of 21. Douglas County approved the retracement survey. Bottom left, we had 5 separate LSPs, and it was visible then on the assessor site shortly thereafter, 9/26 of 21, and you'll see that on the bottom right. So we thought we were in pretty good shape, and then fast forward to March, and we were doing some work with Douglas County Planning, and they recognized there wasn't a legal parcel letter on any of them, any of the 5 parcels. Recognizing what the criteria were for a legal parcel, I personally at the time didn't have any issues with it, because on the right you'll see that there was such a history of regular sales of this property that I assumed that it probably couldn't have been sold if they weren't legal. So we just thought, hey, this is a formality to go back and double check that each of the legal parcel letters is on record. And you can see from the criteria prior to 94, there was at least 3 or 4 claims, or deeds, which indicated to me we should be in pretty good shape. However, you know, as Eric and Jeanette and the team did the research for us, the good news was, as Eric already referenced, 3 of the parcels were deemed to be legal. Those legal parcel letters were placed on file. There were 2 that were deemed to be not legal. So somehow over the years, as they got put together, somehow it got hidden. And so you'll see on the right-hand side the work that Eric did. He could show the map on the microfilm there on the left in 96 prior to then on 1999, they were there. So we recognize that this is what the purpose of the exemption process is for, is to clean this up, and that's when we started the process. This right here was our primary reason for the double D exemption, was to legalize the 2 end parcels. But while we were at it, we wanted to make an adjustment, which, you know, in working with Randy in the fire department, Perry Park Water and Sand, and also just looking at several other opportunities, there was a great opportunity for us to fix for fire response, emergency response, and the building site simplicity on that one that was way to the top left, 1.66 acres, sitting down by the townhomes. It's set down there in a way that would have been difficult for emergency response, fire, and it just seemed like a great time to include that as part of the process, was to make that upper lot where the original clubhouse set larger, 5.2 acres. And then Randy looked at this and he said, well, this is fantastic, because that entrance point to that last lot on the far left now, 5.2 acres, literally sits on the road where it's flat, so fire department can come up no problem, and it's easy to get in and out. So we thought we would make those 3 adjustments while we were at it, and that really brings to conclusion what we're working on the project. But everyone's been highly supportive, Perry Park Water, Sand, Fire, everyone. This is an amazing historical property that we hope to, as we told Perry Park Water and Sand, step away from what we'd seen over the years, which was 40 home development up on that ridge, townhomes, all kinds of activity. Anywhere from 9 to 40 type homes, and just put it back to what it was originally, have 5 parcels to build on, and we should start, if everything goes smooth, we should start our building process here shortly, at least on 1 or 2 of those. You know, not knowing how long it would be before all 5 would be built. But one of the things Eric mentioned earlier that we're supportive of is the 2 criteria that he outlined as, you know, as long as these 2 things happen, you know, which we're supportive of, then they recommend that the development could potentially move forward at that point. So that's it from my standpoint. Any questions?
So just to confirm, so Mr. Dinsmore, you're okay with those 2 conditions?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Great. Any questions for the applicant?
So I just do, thank you for that great presentation, because when I read through this whole packet, I kept thinking, how did this all happen? It didn't make any, you're laughing, you get it. So that fills in a lot of blanks, thank you. So the names Dinsmore and Dumler, and so did one of you buy it, or did both of you buy it?
I originally bought it, so when I after 25 years of working on that Maribel and having the opportunity to sell it, Lori had pointed out, a friend from high school, that this property was available. And in working with Gary Lorenz, you know the name from Maribel, he and their group wanted to purchase mine all in one fell swoop, which worked out perfectly to pick up this 18 acres and start the process. About a year or so later, Lori and Steve stepped in to, once we broke them apart to the proper 5, that's when they could acquire 2 of those. But we had to go through the process of the retracement survey, making sure everything was good, and then break them into 5 so that they could acquire the first 2. So they'll have the first 2 as you enter the property, and I'll have the remaining 3. And our intent is to build on that, what was the original clubhouse. They're going to build closer to where the swimming pool and tennis courts used to be.
Thank you for that. And then, out of curiosity, because you know that I worked with Gary Lorenz on that legislation we got passed. And so I'd seen all the different colored maps, and when I saw your name, I thought, I think he's associated with Mirabel Village. So you have divested yourself of all those parcels.
Right. And still staying in touch with Gary because, we're meeting tomorrow, actually, just to kind of touch base on that property because we've made good progress to clean that up.
I appreciate that.
That required cleanup, and me having 115, which was a large portion, working with the 3 or 4 other folks out there, and then the work that you guys helped us with closing it off, we're in a good place with that property to help clean that up. This kind of needed cleanup too. I kind of stepped out of that thinking this is going to be easier, and it turned out to be some other things were going on.
Well,
So I think we're there, I hope.
Okay. Mr. Kowalski was here recently trying to get another parcel, and so I applaud you and your neighbors down there for cleaning up that mess from the 70s.
Yeah.
So it seems like you've just explained this is a similar one, so thank you for that explanation. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Further questions? Bless you.
No, it looks good. Looks like a good project. I'm glad we're going to be able to help you out with this decision today.
Yeah, thank you. That's it?
Almost. I don't have any further questions, but just want to extend our gratitude. No doubt you've taken on the enterprise risk to redevelop this property and remove what was blighted and really, it looks like, turn it into something quite exceptional. So thank you for taking that on. We certainly recognize that.
Yeah.
Let me open it up for any citizen comment. Is there any citizen comment on this item, either in the room or online?
Thank you, Commissioner. I have no online comment.
Okay, with that, I'll close citizen comment and bring it back to the board for any further discussion and or a motion.
I have a motion to approve the Double D Exemption 1 because it does meet all of the approval criteria with 2 conditions as presented. Project file EX 2022-006.
Second, good fix.
So there's a first and second on the floor. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that carries 3-0. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. So with that, we'll move to our next item, which is 3, our public hearing agenda items. We've got 3A 7745 Moore Road, First Amendment, use by special review, project file US 2022-004. Brett Thomas presenting for staff. Hi, Brett.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Brett Thomas for Planning Services. The project before you is 7745 Moore Road, First Amendment, project number US 2022-004, use by special review application for Zuma's Rescue Ranch. The request is for approval of a USR for a veterinary clinic hospital and a campground on a parcel of approximately 55 acres in size. As part of the approval, the applicant requests the board establish lesser side setbacks for the campground in accordance with section 2106.01 of the zoning resolution. The intent of the USR process is to provide for uses in specific zone districts that shall require a public notice and hearing and the approval of the board, subject to conditions and safeguards as may be imposed by the board. The USR process begins with submittal of an application, following a review period by referral agencies and the public. There are public hearings before the Planning Commission and board. Courtesy notices were sent to adjacent property owners during the public review period, and no responses were received from members of the public. At a public hearing on October 17th, 2022, the Planning Commission considered the applicant's request for approval of a USR. The Commissioners' discussion focused on the location of the camping area and the request for a reduced side setback along the northern property line. 2 members of the public asked questions about the location of overnight camping and potential impact on groundwater. Applicants responded about the location and limitations of the camping area and noted that there is sufficient groundwater to serve the proposed uses. The Planning Commission recommended approval of the USR by a vote of 6-0. The Planning Commissioner's recommendation included support for the applicant's setback variance for the designated camping area on the north side of the property. The site is located in the northwest portion of the county, southeast of Sterling Ranch and west of Leviers. The site, outlined here in red, is west of Moore Road, approximately 2.3 miles south of its intersection with Titan Road. This is an aerial of the property. The properties to the north and south of this site include large lot residential and agricultural grazing. To the west of the site is an undeveloped portion of Sterling Ranch PD. East of the site, across Moore Road, is a 300-acre split-zone property owned by Dino Nobel for industrial and mining purposes. Zuma's Rescue Ranch is a charitable 501c3 organization that specializes in equine rehabilitation, rescue operations, and mental health services for children. The board approved a USR in 2010 to allow the boarding of up to 25 horses and the provision of up to 30 lessons per day. The existing USR for horse boarding and lessons will remain in operation along with the requested additional uses. Seasonal entertainment events for the community are also held on the property. Zuma's Rescue Ranch is requesting approval of a USR for a veterinary clinic hospital and campground on the subject property. The campground is intended to serve the existing USR facility and other agricultural uses permitted on the property, in addition to the proposed vet clinic hospital. The campground is not open to the public for recreational camping and is intended to be utilized intermittently by individuals visiting in connection with Zuma's Rescue Ranch. The campground is proposed north of the existing arena in this location and will not exceed 12 overnight visitors at any time. The request for the lesser setback is also proposed in this north area, north of the existing indoor arena. Campers will utilize existing portable restrooms and hand sanitizing stations. No other improvements are proposed for the campground. Section 2107.05 of the zoning resolution requires that all campground uses are located at least 100 feet from property lines. In accordance with section 2106.01 of the zoning resolution, as stated, the applicant's requesting that the board establish a lesser setback of 30 feet along that north property line. The veterinary clinic hospital is proposed to serve up to 5 clients per hour, not to exceed 15 clients per day. No more than 5 horses are anticipated at the vet clinic hospital at any one time. The vet clinic hospital is proposed within a portion of the existing hay barn, which is located in this location of the property. A building permit will be required for interior renovations to include 6 horse stalls, 4 of which will be equipped as hydration stations, a procedure area, a wash area, associated x-ray, surgical suite, offices, classroom, and other medical equipment. In addition to the site plan layout, the USR regulations require that various operational details and limitations be set forth on the plan exhibit. Management plan is also required as part of the USR plan exhibit. The management plan addresses the number of clients and employees, hours of operation, parking, water system, fire protection, and manure management for the existing and proposed uses on site. The management plan element of the USR is described in greater detail within section 3C of the staff report. Here are the approval standards for use by special review that are discussed in detail on pages 74 through 77 of the staff report packet. Staff has assessed the application in accordance with section 21 of the zoning resolution. Should the board find that the approval standards for the USR are met, staff proposes the following conditions for inclusion in its motion. Condition number 1, prior to final approval of the record copy of the USR plan exhibit, any necessary technical corrections shall be made to the satisfaction of Douglas County. And condition number 2, all commitments and promises made by the applicant or the applicant's representative during the public hearing and/or agreed to in writing and included in the public record have been relied upon by the Board of County Commissioners in approving the application. Therefore, such approval is conditioned upon the applicant's full satisfaction of all such commitments and promises. Section 2109.09 of the zoning resolution sets forth parameters for the board's determination on USR request as noted on this slide. And this concludes staff's presentation. I'm available to take questions on the staff report at this time. Otherwise, the applicant representative, Lindsay Lida with Otten Johnson, has a presentation to share.
Brett, thank you for that. Any questions for staff?
Brett, I do have a couple of questions. So can you tell us what is on the north side of this property? I'm concerned about moving the setback for the campground and the camping. So can you tell me what is on that north side of that property line?
Yeah, and it doesn't show up very well at this scale. There is, this is an existing residence that's essentially a flag lot. So it has, and I'm not sure the width of it, I apologize, but there is a small portion of this lot that actually comes through on the northern portion of this property. And then on the other side of that is additional land that's also owned by the Mesnich. So it's, and they can explain probably better than I can in their presentation, but it's essentially part of the same ownership.
Okay.
It just has this access from this residence that goes through, but I don't believe there's a physical access in that piece of land.
Okay, and so the parcel to the left, I looked through the packet and I didn't see any letter one way or the other from those property owners. Have we heard from them?
On the west side of the property,
Yes, sir.
I believe that is Sterling Ranch, and they did not provide any, they would have been provided a courtesy notice as an abutting landowner.
I'm sorry, I wasn't clear. So it looks like there's two parcels north of
To the
this.
north.
The one on the left, who owns that house?
At the time, I believe Mesnich owned that property. I believe it has changed hands since the application and courtesy notice.
And did we hear from those owners about this?
We have not heard from them through the
Thank
process.
you. I have no other questions.
Further questions for staff?
No, sir.
Okay. And I have no questions at this point. I'll save my questions following the applicant's presentation. If the applicant would like to come forward, state your name and where you're from for the record, please.
Good afternoon. My name's Lindsay Lida, last name spelled Lyda. I'm with the law firm Otten Johnson. Business address is 950 17th Street, Suite 1600 in Denver. Our firm represents Mesnich Ash LLC, the applicant for the USR before you this afternoon. We have just a little bit of additional background information and to fill in the applicant's vision for this use by special review. Brett provided a very thorough presentation, so I won't belabor any of those points. Again, before you today, our request is that you approve the use by special review for a veterinary clinic, hospital, and campground, as well as approve our requested reduction of the side setback, which Brett pointed out, and I can show you in our presentation as well, from 100 feet to 30 feet. As Brett mentioned, the property is approximately 55 acres. It's within the A1 zone district. Its primary purpose is to serve as the location for Zuma's Rescue Ranch, which is a 501c3 nonprofit. It specializes in horse rescue rehabilitation. And with this USR, they want to add the vet clinic to their operations. In addition to the horse rescue aspect, Zuma's has a large emphasis on mental health programs. They're a partner with Douglas County Emergency Response Team, and they provide different mental health outreach programs as well as educational programs. And then in addition, they also offer riding lessons. And that was part of the approval for the initial use by special review from 2009, which allowed for the boarding of up to 25 horses on the property and up to 30 riding lessons per day on the property. As Brett mentioned, there's also occasional entertainment events that occur on the property. That's outside of the use by special review process. That's an annual entertainment permit that the applicant goes through. Our request is for both the veterinary clinic, hospital, and the campground. The vet clinic is intended to provide either fully, at no cost or at little cost, large animal vet clinic services to both Zumas and the surrounding community. As I mentioned, a lot of horses are brought in that need very specialized care, so the vet clinic could provide on-site care for those horses. The idea is it could serve up to 5 clients per hour, no more than 15 per day, with a maximum number of employees of 10. That is the, goal. To start off, it would be much less than that. There would be no new improvements with the vet clinic. As Brett mentioned, everything would occur within the existing barn. We would just need to do some renovations to that. The campground would not be open to the public in the traditional sense. It would be anyone on property that's already associated with Zumas or the vet clinic would be allowed to stay on the campground. The vision there is, if someone brings in a horse that needs really specialized care, needs to be checked every 2 hours or so, by having the campground, it would allow that owner to stay on site, either in their horse trailer or they could bring a tent. It's anticipated that this would be very infrequently used and never a large campground setting. Again, it would be restricted to no more than 12 overnight campers at any time. And then based on the feedback and recommendation from the Planning Commission, the applicant would like to implement quiet hours for the campground, which could be included in the management plan for the final approval of this application. But those quiet hours would be between 9 p.m. and 6 a.m. every day. With that, I think that also helps with the requested side setback reduction from 100 to 30 feet, knowing that there will be those quiet hours. Again, here's the site plan. This will be the camping area. About here's the property line, and this is the cutoff here between the 2 parcels. There's a large lot home over here, and then what's currently a vacant open pasture that's used in connection with Zuma's Rescue Ranch and also owned by an affiliated entity of the applicant. And then here's the barn, just to orient you. Brett's staff report had a very thorough analysis of the approval standards, so I won't go into that. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer that. And then myself, as well as several members of Zuma's Rescue Ranch, are here today to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lyda, for that presentation. Any questions for the applicant?
Thank you for that presentation. I do still have some concerns about this campground. So it said, did you say camping trailers or tents?
Correct. Horse trailers. So it would be, a space within the horse trailer that the person would be staying.
And so would you have 12 people, so there could be like 2 in each trailer, or there would be 12 trailers, or it could be both?
It would be capped at people.
Capped at people.
Mm-hmm. The visitors.
And why is the request to reduce the setback from 100 feet to only 30 feet?
Because the applicant's ideal location for the campground is this space here. And when we put it here, the reduction becomes a 30-foot setback. So the reduction comes from the optimal location of placing the campground. There's several property owners down here. You're looking north, so this would be south. And those neighbors are concerned about having the campground located here because there's actual homes there. Here, the applicant feels comfortable putting the campground up next to the property it owns and maintains as a vacant parcel.
Okay, and then the packet indicated there would be porta potties set up there?
I believe the porta potties are within the existing facilities. Is that correct?
And there's actually listed site plan.
They're right in front of the indoor.
Okay.
Right there.
Right there, yeah.
Right there.
Okay. I'm just trying to understand. Thank you, I have no other questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas. Commissioner Teal?
No questions. This looks okay by me.
Ms. Lyda, you've given a very thorough presentation, and I think we received a lot of information from staff as well. I don't have any additional questions for you, so what I'll do at this time is open it up for any citizen comment, either in person or online. Is there any citizen comment?
Commissioner, I have no online comment.
Okay, and then let me just confirm with the applicant that you are okay with all of the conditions as presented?
We are.
Okay, thank you very much. So with that, I'll bring it back to the board for any further discussion and or a motion.
I just need to double check with staff. How many conditions were there?
2.
Just the 2. That's what I thought. All right, well, if it does please the board, I don't see anything wrong with this request. It looks like it'll fit into the area. So if it pleases the board, I do have a motion to approve 7745 Moore Road, First Amendment, use by special review because it does meet all the approval criteria with 2 conditions as presented, project file US 2022-004.
Second.
So there's a first and second on the floor. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that carries 3-0. So with that, we will adjourn. The next land use meeting and public hearing will be held on Tuesday, November 15th, 2022 at 2:30 p.m. Thank you very much.
Thank you.